Hey Star Trek fans, welcome to another episode of the Star Trek Picard Deep Dive. I'm Dan Gunther. This week we're taking a look at the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, Nepenthe. At the beginning of the episode, we finally get a chance to see what went down between Dr. Jurati and Commodore O in that meeting they had a couple of weeks back. It looks as though Commodore O in fact mind melded with Dr. Jurati, showing her a possible future, maybe, where synths have destroyed all life. Does this sound familiar at all? First of all, the Vulcan mind meld is a well-known ritual done by Vulcans throughout Star Trek history. Spock, a half-human, half-Vulcan, first did it in the original series. This calls into question what exactly the nature of Commodore O is. I do have a plan of doing a theory video to talk about just that. And also, this doomsday scenario looks a little familiar. If you watched last season of Star Trek Discovery, you may remember the world-ending AI control taking over the galaxy and wiping out all sentient life. And some of these shots look as though they've kind of been lifted from that scenario. In fact, this shot of Earth getting bombed or something like that is actually taken directly from Discovery with a few changes, a few explosions added, and a little bit of a different color scheme there. But it is definitely from the same elements. Is Star Trek Picard going down the same route as Discovery, and are these two incidents linked somewhat? We don't know for sure, but we'll definitely be looking out for that in the future. I might do a theory video about that as well. Here's a bit of an Easter egg that I'm not sure exactly what it means at this point, but during the La Sirena's escape attempt from the Borg cube, Raffi sees some footage of the writings of the disordered Borg, the Romulan XBs who have some sort of disorder. Ramda was one from a few episodes you may remember. She takes note of some of their writings and drawings and sees some sort of significance in them. I'm not sure exactly what this is yet. Hopefully this will be revealed. My thinking is it has something to do with her theory about the attack on Mars, but that's just speculation at this point. Not sure where they're going with this, but it is definitely something that we're supposed to take note of. After the credits, we finally get to the titular planet of Nepenthe, and our first inhabitant of the planet that we see is this creature, which is later called a bunnicorn. You may notice that it looks like a terrestrial rabbit with a unicorn-style horn on its head. Now, showrunner Michael Chabon has indeed confirmed on Instagram that the design of this creature is an homage to the dog that we see in the original series episode, The Enemy Within, which of course was just a dog with some antenna and a horn placed on it. So just a nice little homage there, which was kind of cool to see. The next inhabitant of Nepenthe that we meet, in a scene that was a little reminiscent of Renee meeting Picard in the TNG episode Family, posing as a highwayman, a robber. In this case, it's a wild girl of the woods, Deanna Troi Riker. Now, longtime Star Trek fans may note that name Kestra sounds familiar. Kestra was in fact the name of Deanna Troi's older sister, who she never got the chance to meet as she died when Deanna was an infant in a tragic accident. Kestra was apparently named in honor of her. During this initial meeting with Kestra, she threatens both Soji and Picard with a bow and arrow. Picard quips that she should not aim at his heart, but rather his head, as his heart is made of solid duratanium. This is a reference to the fact that Picard has an artificial heart, as first mentioned and seen in the TNG episode Samaritan Snare. The backstory in which Picard's heart was damaged during a fight with Nausicaans is gone into further detail in the 6th season episode Tapestry. We soon get to a reunion between Picard and his longtime shipmate, Commander Deanna Troi. Deanna Troi served as ship's counselor aboard the Enterprises D and E, as well as serving on the Titan with Captain Riker after Star Trek Nemesis. It's really great to see Marina Sirtis in this role, and in my opinion, she really knocks it out of the park here. Note her hair and eyes. There's an interesting story told by Marina Sirtis. She in fact kept the wig and contact lenses after wrapping Star Trek Nemesis. Luckily for her and the production of Star Trek Picard that she did so, as she informed them that her character normally wears a wig and contact lenses. They were surprised by this, not having taken that into account, and did not have time to have the required hairpiece and contact lenses made up. But Marina Sirtis, of course, had it covered, as she still had those items from her time in Star Trek Nemesis. So just kind of a neat little story there, and things worked out, thankfully, really luckily for them there. And then shortly thereafter, of course, we get to meet Will Riker, played, of course, by Jonathan Frakes, Captain Picard's first officer aboard the Enterprise D&E and captain of the USS Titan after Star Trek Nemesis. Will Riker has long been a lover of jazz music, and indeed we hear him listening to jazz here, as well as being an avid cook. In fact, on 2 occasions we saw Riker cooking in Star Trek. First, he made some omelets for the Enterprise crew in the 2nd season. In the 3rd season, he made a dish called Parthas a la Utah. And then if you count his time on Star Trek Enterprise, where he posed as the chef, I suppose that could be the 3rd instance we've seen of Riker cooking. Here he's making pizza for his family, continuing his tradition of being a lover of non-replicated, actually cooked food. Riker mentions to Picard that lately they've been having trouble with the Kzinti. Some people have misheard this as the Xindi from Star Trek Enterprise, but no, he does in fact say Kzinti, who were an antagonist from Star Trek the Animated Series, specifically the episode The Slaver Weapon, written by Larry Niven. They're an original invention by author Larry Niven, who created them for his novels. In fact, Michael Chabon revealed that he contacted Larry Niven to get permission to use the name Kzinti in this episode, which Larry Niven graciously provided. The Kzinti, as I said, appeared in the TAS episode The Slaver Weapon, and were apparently slated to appear in a 5th season of Enterprise had that series been renewed. Next, we get a number of references to Lieutenant Commander Data, the purported father of Soji and Daj.
Do you play the violin?
No,
Do you like Sherlock Holmes?
I guess so.
Can you run super fast and jump really high and bend steel with your hands?
Turns out, yes, I can.
He could do all these amazing things, but all he ever really wanted to do was have dreams and tell jokes and learn how to ballroom dance.
At one point, Picard refers to Riker as Commander Riker. This is technically a mistake, as Riker is at least a captain, seeing as that's how we last saw him in Star Trek Nemesis. However, Picard gets a bit of payback his way, even though he doesn't realize it, when Kestra calls him Captain Picard to Soji later. Picard, of course, left Starfleet as an admiral. We learn a bit of backstory of Thad Riker, Will and Deanna's first child, a son who was tragically lost to an illness and would recently have turned 18 had he lived. Thad was named after Will Riker's ancestor, Colonel Thaddeus Riker, who served in the Union Army in the American Civil War. He was known as Old Iron Boots, and we learned about him in the Voyager episode Death Wish. He was saved by a member of the Q Continuum, so I guess Riker owes his existence to the Q. Speaking of Thad, we learned that he had a way with languages and had invented 12 separate languages as a child, creating an entire fictional world and populating it with various peoples. He apparently inherited this love of languages from Deanna Troi, who reportedly had a way with languages according to Lwaxana Troi in the TNG episode Dark Page. Back on the La Sirena, we catch up with the crew who have escaped the Romulans, but are being trailed by Narek in his little scout ship. At one point, Dr. Jurati says she wants to be that fun crew member who suggests they hide in that comic, but which turns out to be a Gormagander. This may be a reference to The Empire Strikes Back. Possibly. But Gormagander is definitely a reference to the space whale that we saw in the Star Trek Discovery episode, Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. Harry Mudd hid in a Gormagander in order to get aboard the Discovery to sell it to the Klingons. Meanwhile, back on the Borg cube, we get this unfortunate scene which sadly sees the death of Hugh, which I hope may not be as permanent as we think. But regardless of that, we get the Battle of the Incredible Hair between Narissa and Elnor. At one point, she deploys a pair of small knives. These knives are very reminiscent of a knife that Shinzon used in the climax of the film Star Trek Nemesis. Unfortunately, one of these small knives is thrown at Hugh. Hugh apparently dies with it stuck in his neck. But if you look very carefully, there appears to be a small continuity error here. Before that happens, Hugh pokes his head out from behind an outcropping in the corridor, and it looks as though he already has the dagger protruding from his neck before Narissa throws it. So a little bit of a continuity error. I don't think we were supposed to notice that. Towards the end of the episode, Kestra is talking about her hero, Captain Crandall, who says that he has been from Chronos to Tychon's Rift. Chronos, of course, is the Klingon homeworld seen in several episodes of Star Trek over the years, and Tychon's Rift is where the USS Britain and later the USS Enterprise got stuck in the TNG episode Night Terrors. And finally, I really like this one. Towards the end of the episode, Kestra is wearing a t-shirt which has some Klingon writing on it in a somewhat familiar-looking font. According to Michael Chabon, this is Klingon for Sex Pistols, or sex phasers, if you will. So it looks like the band t-shirt survives well into the 24th century. Well, this was definitely a fun episode for Easter eggs and canon connections. Were there any that I missed? Please let me know in the comments below. Before I go, I also want to draw your attention to this wonderful piece of work done by friend and fellow podcaster Aaron Harvey. When you were watching this episode, did you get any kind of vibes of a different television show? Check out his full video of Little House on Nepenthe. It really is worth a look. Click the card or the link in the description. Awesome job, Aaron. I really loved this. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, of course, to the Patreon supporters. I really do appreciate it. A reminder that new Patreon supporters are added at the start of each month, so if you have changed your pledge or decided to support this channel in the last month, you will be added at the start of April. Thank you to everyone who is supporting me, and if you would like to support Kertrats Productions, go to patreon.com/Kertrats. I really do appreciate it. Even $1 a month really helps a lot. So thank you again. Thanks everyone else for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, as always, live long and prosper. I wonder how you say live long and prosper in Vivine.